Hello, humanity. We have black pupils, whites of eyes, same color eyes, different color eyes, same time. We have answers, means out of nowhere. We have the fact that, in fact, generated from the fact, because it's truth always, that we're supposed to address how economies, we were forced to be part of economies, economic value treatments, leaving out how they had means before cars. The suburbs were designed tactically to nature for the torture and for the extortion and for the fact-driven nature, slavery. But we have not addressed, honestly, the fact-driven nature, torture, and extortion of James Madison and of George Washington simultaneously, individually. But the way, the breaching method, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to be defended with syntax, where there are suits and ties, encounters as collusions not wanting to be by any way. Exceptions were made because uses of those differences, black pupils, simultaneously it involves this, and it involved it. And we know that where it involved it, if we examine the syntax with history, they're blaming on other things, others ourselves. Things that reason, description, honest, shows us to blame on the scientific value of the breaching method. See, this breaching method knew that we would have to describe that because nature is showing us that. The breaching method itself. So they made that not just illegal to talk about, not just because they all the reasons, but they employed other identities of, for example, how we are additionally voicings as Earth, not it, but anyway. We are the voice for the worms that are no longer coming out of the soil in the suburbs to walk into puddles, to walk into bodies of water. They're no longer fishing. Everything's dead, the whole food cycle. So the rain goes away, then there will be constantly worms walking into the puddles, coming out of the ground. The birds still have food to eat. The bodies of water, even when it wasn't raining, there used to be worms in the pond, walking into the ponds. Now, there's no life forms in there. There's no food systems. Where evolution's fruits, gifts, and space means out of nowhere come. Honest science would have revealed too. The breaching method employed homeless populations and then modern religions. It was already abridged uses of the names A through Z and the sciences names. And then names A through Z further. And all that is used to hide behind. Oh, it's money. How can these things still be blamed on money when we have the fact that our founders told, that was forced entrenched north and south? How are you the people? So the way to fix the world, there's wars going on. We have to let the hyper-invisible but still discernible lead. But that's obviously where we start. And but with a plan that's going to be with all not the other countries left out, you can't honest reason. It's time to admit and speak and reveal. We have to this designed people needing food from other locations and value nature systems, and that's relied upon. And the debate about that, too, is relied upon, the difference of it. See, English uses difference in ways greater than, more finite than, and with active relativity to math that it can't appreciate. So, well, I'm an expert. I'm not an expert on that. I rely, on this person's syntax. But they can't, it's too complicated. In other words, there's a quality of fact-driven nature. called criminal insidiousness. I am not even a lawyer. Thank God. So we could get lawyers and judges to finish, but we're going to have to do a hyper-territorial, extra-written mandate. We have to take control of the earth, A through Z. How actually governments are manifest as executive, political, and judicial branch, and exceptions tied to them, like the state offices, like the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices, like the state of Connecticut corrections offices, people A through Z, including them, certain type of victim / hyper victim / S, but predators, not wanting to be, but increasingly. For example, where and how they speak for difference. Not one voice has brought up the fact that we have black pupils and whites of eyes. Any and everywhere that is brought up. All exceptions. Exception nature, because that is also demonstrated with our eyes. And there is more here to appreciate vaccines. So in other words, there's a difference between, we need to stop the war right now. We need to stop the killing, for example, in Palestine, in Ukraine, in Russia. This is in the species volume, A through Z. It's like music science. Each note has another note that looks a little bit or sounds a little bit more like itself. And looks like it because we could draw this. But once it starts looking like that grouped, then the other one another way looks a little more like itself. So individually grouped together, the notes of music, the letters of the English alphabet, not just the consonants and the vowels. A, E, I, O, U. So I deciphered this. Smiles as a kid. And I never say anything. In other words, there were people that there are men and women, and there are kids, boys and girls, involved at countries A through Z, with where and how this breaching method before modern religion's messengers even were born. The republic for which we stand, America, which we have inherited it, still criminally foreign influenced. The nature of the debate regarding history and how to think, how reason, how to evaluate evidences, and the truth of how descriptions of that, in other words, they're describing something before. In other words, people aren't dealing with premises, fact, human nature, quality, aspects, nature properly. So they have, this is the bricks, and this is that, and we're trading this, and right, want to have things like that, natures of wealth and things like that. I'm just doing this for politics. See, there's a shell game, black pupils. They call it cancel culture, but like a whole bunch of people I have seen call it cancel culture on Fox News, for example. And they're right, but they're also, everyone stayed collusions. See, there's a shell game between the sources of CNN, Fox Connecticut News, as judges and prosecutors and their databases associated with them, and their family members, and the databases associated with the schools they went. They had timed collusions with a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime and crime bodies. And this is where and how we have to appreciate. And the difference of that. All sides in criminal and civil cases leading up to the World Trade Center attack, for example. And in the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center towers. And on and off the spots next to it, too. On and off the World Trade Center are people that were involved with sequence shifts. It was proven after the World Trade and identity theft, fraud, slanders, World Trade Center predicate acts, also with the news, leading up to it in that context and sense. At all locations /S. I tell it best, boxings. Part of the way they get away with this is a method where it employed their uses of difference. Where there are only three branches of government, and they are themselves, except for where they are the people that work for the state judicial branch offices, people that live next to it. The difference of that, of adjacents and of conjunctions. Their family members, people that live next to it, Fianza, with people that on Two-Route Highway, whole bunch of people on off Two-Route Highway involved with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, and with the South Seville, with Mayor Gold, and with Julie Morin. Julie Morin, I was only nice to her. In other words, she was in my fourth grade class. And like they were involved with each year that people before that had time collusions with other countries, names, and with our own fake. But it's at corners like the people they don't even know. And I follow it because constantly investigators, as we will examine black pupils, that were being and haven't been used remotely criminally foreign influence. Certain type of victim / hyper victim. This breaching method knew that we would have to. Obviously, we need the police. We need doctors, healthcare. See, behold, a bunch of things, doctors and healthcare that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, where they make convictions, where they theorize. So they switch names into branch because of the relativity of how they've been using names and where and how they don't want to be victims / hyper victims. Now, these are the people that paid the most, and also because they have the most insights, they do investing, things like that. They also get ripped off, in other words, like black pupils. Not one honest body of law spoke for the quality of fact, human nature necessary here. Outside of courts, too, especially, we know from here, they have failed. Boxings, approaching New York things. Because on off the World Trade Center, I'm from Connecticut, from Wethersfield, Connecticut, Antony Wall. This is the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me, God, existence, everything. Anything you want to call me to call it, or yourself, in other words. Not leaving out the smallest finite detail and or the value of what came first. But when you do this, it shows a whole bunch of people making fake exceptions, having made them as time collusions with a whole bunch of different countries. Now, this is a method that exploits identities of experts. For example, relative to where and to how, too. For example, with descriptions of reason and of the quality of debate, what is how to interpret what is right or wrong or positive, or who is. For example, with the beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the Quran, they both have parts that say that they were the only part that we have to care about. And they qualify that. But rather than even knowing that, people only hear people with passions and emotions, with describing their convictions. And what they say there is truth, always, not denying the slightest exceptions. Or they're not saying it like that, but they're implying that. As in nature, as criminalness / hypercriminalness. I'm saying it that way, 3 ways. Because it is inseparable from all things. It is more where people, it is more atheists too have collusions with this. There are atheists, and there are people who are all different kinds of religions and types of the same religion, and difference of their locations and their family members. They're pretending sense and sensibilities at locations online, and to an extent they don't know, because I too have people get involved with people's business, but they don't want other people to, and not the fact of that is being used to hide what came first and or what's actually recorded. People are just offensively forcing a quality of fact-driven nature to with difference. Before Meta came, Meta had roles with we have New Britain Superior Court and on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and Hartford courts had roles with former director of FBI Robert Luskin and with his co-defendants before the World Trade Center attack. And they influenced people to roles with predicate acts with foreign and domestic military, all sides with the World Trade Center attack, including they forced Saudi's collusions with them. And the attackers forced Saudi to collusion with them to be represented by people they don't want to be represented by. Same thing happens with America and names A through Z. You guys won't even you guys pretend it's debatable. After debate someone, that Native Americans individually grouped in together, there was a sustained breaching method on them. And we're supposed to appreciate this because it was the same one that was already it was sustained through the same. We have this volume science A through Z that was employed by the hyper-native nature in semi-ancient times. Names A through Z became used as systems tactical ulterior. So little rap guy and friends, we could use this and make up pantheism, a plan, and it's not a solution, because in other words, not just, and this is a nature of leadership where we move with as the simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous. While we're aware that one little part of each person looks a little bit more like the complete identity of the other names A through Z. See, long we have had that identity hyper invisible but still discernible as that which is why, in its identity of relationship to itself and the value of it, species, distinctly but non-distinctly and simultaneously, by that which is further hyper-simultaneous. So nature shows us the identity of relativity / hyper-relativity. This breaching method employed uses of words like theory with sciences A through Z at the locations. It employed roles with predicate acts with facts to have a specific type of behavior racketeering, worse than war crimes, so to speak. To begin, black pupils. We are walking down with a little boy and a little girl on each side of you, Babaderos. Babaderos sees. I've donated this to each language, not just English. And there's no grouping. In other words, the grouping is to be contemplated. Use of the value / S associated with all groupings. We have been using how and why. We are an individual body / S of the human species body. Nature's identity, its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that uses these other values, individual grouped in together, to show us its complete identity. Proper descriptions of reason and of predicates, let alone predicate acts. Yeah. So in other words, wars are going on, people still dying behind on the other side of suits and ties. On the other side of natures of debate, that are still overtly / insidiously collusion / S with that which employed black and white to mean other simultaneously, all exceptions, to measure and maintain collusions with a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime. As people that didn't want that, but increasingly anyway. And so now they have to counter that. And now the difference between that, because where and how this is discernible, the breaching method, and its conjunction to where and how people speak and spoke. See, through all smoke. See, we're our syntactical hyper-possession by nature. The habit is forbidden. Yet, that quality of fact should be nature capable of speaking for the Constitution unabridged. Let alone, we have our students can't understand this because you have the quote experts on reason involved with a whole bunch of different nature of organized crime that they were supposed to not be about. How they got away with this, how the federal too. And how all the other states sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too. And two, how the North and the South never spoke for their entrenchments honestly as collusion / S. Because the breaching method deciphered what our founders left us to decipher and told us overtly before we did. So now what they told us overtly is instead they have narratives by the window at the Constitutional Convention, for example, used to measure and maintain, left out honest and proper, unabridged treatments of the predicate acts with facts method / S. That is what that was, which was assigned those laws individually grouped in together. Which trials were about, even if they were made up. They're about the human fact treatment nature slavery, torture, and extortion of George Washington and of James Madison, sickly distinctly, then to measure and maintain, as they had set up since this is a method since before modern countries. They set up more and more the needs for people to make natures of unity, groups, and natures of independence simultaneously, tactical ulterior from how nature needs us to value what with these phenomena are generated in demonstration of the hyper-simultaneous, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. So in other words, we can put down pantheism / hyper-pantheism. And if you have nuclear weapons and bombs and things like that, that's not, that strength is for Israel to beg. Maybe they didn't know how to beg. They don't know how to beg properly each modern country. That's because they were tortured since you're kids. Black pupils. You had means to discern other than nature's identity's relationship to itself is being used with the color black. You want to speak for the religions, leaving out what nature itself teaches us. You want to leave out the first parts of the Old Testament and the Quran, even though it's the part that says the only part that has to be defended. You want to make it things the debatable parts. Using criminally foreign influence. That simultaneously defending yourself and use of the identities of the religions, your collusions with the people who say, even if they were influenced too by there's a Wayne who was involved increasingly since I was a kid. People involved with West Hartford locations, New Britain locations like Central Connecticut State University next to it. They've been intercities on off campuses, roles with identity theft, fraud, slander, increasingly with names on off Hartford Hospital, on off New Britain medical locations. West, Middletown, interstates, people from California, people with the military. Then they want to, they're staying collusions with criminally foreign influence use of database, use of corners of streets, use of identity theft, fraud, slander. Then the collusion, the difference between that and all sides of criminal and civil cases, including ones with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the difference between the interbranch switching names, forging names, stacking fake things in databases, and the people tied to them in their state offices, the state of Connecticut corrections offices, in its location on off Franklin Avenue, Wethersfield / Hartford, the town lines, on off where the Wethersfield Police Department is now and where it used to be in the past. A whole bunch of people tied to retired police chiefs. One of them named Police Chief Centron, involved with predicate acts, with the town lines, with the maps, with the narratives, where it is in the syntax, where it is being and hasn't been employed. All identities are all formal. Uses of their identity as collusions with readings of statutes and precedents, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Formally as collusions with people using phrases like war crimes, genocide, murder, even when properly. The truths are forced used for lies because of the collusions. There are all kinds of rules with shared what they call justice and what they call, even when they're putting fake transcripts and evidences and databases, collusions all the time. All the things we hear about prisons and things like that, it's fake. All the truths are used for lies too, to keep blaming on other things other than themselves. How they are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, right, where, and how they speak for patriotism or keep their mouth shut and speak for the value of that. See, not voice and not silence as the nature proper, or as the Constitution unabridged, has spoken for evidences, data, and facts properly and truth simultaneously. The hyper-truth. See, it can be used to discern where and how truths are used for lies and fake motivations, like regarding pretending things are about politics. This is evidence is planting in the differences of the interbranch roles, criminally foreign influenced, the intelligence tied to them, not them, but acting as and with them. And they're increasingly stacking fake things in databases since before our founders were even born. Boolean logic and narratives regarding history are recorded, self-valued, criminally foreign influence / and simultaneously tactically delusions wrought / hyper-tactically. Palestine, Israel have collusions against people with the people with psychiatry tied to the medical locations and to the military locations and to the prisons and to each of the sciences, the campuses. See, the campus Marseillaise comes with the Republic, but the Republic came abridged. We were supposed to appreciate how the Republic came abridged, and our founders forced more than 13 colonies to be grouped that way, 13 ways, simultaneously to be grouped 2 ways, without them seeing it coming. No means to defend themselves syntactically to the questions individually grouped together by the other names of the species volume. But the way that is not going to succeed is the only way to succeed, but is not going to succeed till they decipher what our founders left. as the value of Marbury Rivers Madison, not leaving out the slightest exception, not leaving out the value of what came first, truth, not leaving out the value of that hyper identity of the hyper-simultaneous, its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that comes with the revelations, that comes with the truths led by that aren't being used to lies because they're connected. And so we are individual volume science, while it is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, again, hyper-simultaneously, the volume science is the species body. All this shows us where its identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that generated matter, and is generating all things, as all things, well, not, but anyway. And as the special difference that has been left out with reasons descriptions, as this special difference that is as why there are 1/3/5 identities of sequence nature, that the 7 names of the verb are about appreciation of and qualification of that, because of its how it is hyper-additional nature, each nature that is true always, not denying the slightest exception, not valuing the or truth used to hide what came first. So, in other words, that's one of the things that people who went to my campuses that I never had classes with, and with there's exceptions too. They use those exceptions, criminally foreign influence. These are people involved with programming too. Then they can't be honest. Regard what if ask, a question and with thought. So, in other words, all long roads and routes is manifest across our countries, A through Z. The suburbs were designed before our founders were born. The corners of streets. So in other words, there's a South Civiello. And his mother, I never had any conversation with. I was only playing around that. And a Richard Dabrowski. His neighbors have roles of people on and off the World Trade Center and on and off the Connecticut State Judicial Branch offices, who have been with the other, attaching me to fake ties and locations to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves. And Eric Oliveri made it real quick. He made all kinds of confessions and demonstrations, pretending other, by getting out of the car and taking off a beer cap on a bottle. I had no beers with me. I never asked him for beer. I didn't want him to be able to drink in the car for a minute. He was involved from before that with people not in my classes, sticking fake things in databases and telling lies about me to my teachers behind my back and to the leaders of the schools. These are also people involved with all kinds of natures of research locations, uses, criminally foreign influence, specifically to affect their roles. Like Quinnipiac University has roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with foreign and domestic medical families, involved with a Ray Reynolds and a Kevin Harris and a Leahy family. Medical families foreign and too with them, and a Brian Silver, and a Soulsby, other prosecutors and judges, a Judge Smith, a Judge Killian, involved with sexual medical offenders, enforcing women judges' roles, where and how the quality of fact should be nature, and or the value of what came first, denied, and uses of that role. And uses of all kinds of natures of organized crime, not legitimately. Oh, well, how do you know that? How I know? Because all sides of criminal and civil cases, you guys keep switching names, sticking sequence shifts as the ones who were involved also right timed next to the World Trade Center attack. And you use names on all sides of the criminal the case, in criminal and civil case. In other words, cases in the court next to it, because you're leaving this out, was proven after the World Trade Center attack in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center, right before the attack. People had stacked fake things in the database, sequence shifts, as rolls with names on all sides of the case. They did that to make it look like to the panel of judges that had been filed late, and the people who went there to observe all sides, including the people in other words, those people were also brought into the rolls, intercities, planting predicate acts with me, with a whole bunch of different police forms, and their roles with Central Connecticut intelligence families, making police forms like state police and stuff like that. They have roles with intelligence families in East Hartford with the name Magnanos, and other people involved with names from Wethersfield Police that are switching names with the name McGee, with different falsified police reports, intercities, with I caught him with a principal child offender. And there are more that were involved with the school then. And one of the a girl when I was in 6th grade, and before that, the only one I ever heard was the name Lance Cuddy. But there's a Lance Cuddy also. She said a Lance Cuddy is involved with people with a spot on street with Alina's Pizza and a tiki bar place that has been since I was a kid involved with 6th grade classes and each of the grades sickly distinctly. They're stacking predicate acts with fax rolls and then with more rolls that are timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. A whole bunch of people with the British Superior Court have roles with people that use my name with them that I never had classes with. And when there was exceptions, they have roles with predicate acts involved with that, with names that were also involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the news planting evidences through time. A whole bunch of medical offenders of kids, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with a Jonathan Miano and his family and their neighbors are involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts too, and people with the name Spada involved with and their neighbors involved with the child offenders and judges with probate courts. They're putting fake things in databases. They have a Delaferra family involved with judges, with planting evidences, trying to get kids arrested, and getting them arrested, putting the difference of them putting fake things. I was never present with them with a Subby Bajerio and with a Jeremy Grohl when they stole radios. And they're the people involved with a Smith families, not just a Judge Smith, involved with the Wethersfield Police, with foreign and domestic military. Their roles with Afghan leadership and kids, with names on and off Trinity College involved with medical offenders of kids, as ones on my street involved planting evidences there and here. And they planted evidences on Central Connecticut State University. Now, these are behavior racketeering natures that have pretended me and others and their family members to fake conversations with themselves and others, and with the news at the same time. The news has been planting with their sources at corners of streets and next to the schools. Roles with the people with the military, too. There's a Paul Kelly and his family members and neighbors who are also involved with medical racketeering and worse than war crimes, with judges and prosecutors and doctors, foreign and domestic, on and off their corners of the streets, and their roles with the relative news articles. And they have wire crimes with their phones. WTNH was forced, tricked, persuaded to self-value roles, putting fake emails. And I never called them on the phone. And so because one of the things that saves is the means to preserve how they pretend people telling things at places where they had collusions with it, where and how we have identities of legal natures that have been getting away with things, not for the reasons thought since founding, pounding drums. So I was only polite to everyone. The only exception they could pretend other when I was growing up was Debbie Gold put a fake exception that shows the same thing. She sustained calling me names out of nowhere as rules, also simultaneously confessing collusions with adults and kids, with uses of corners of buildings, and of uses of when you're going to come around the corner, they say something to make it look like you're mixed in a conversation you never were within. They're increasingly the roles with the difference of the interbranch family members, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, child offenders, including sexual and medical leaders of the kids. There's a Mr. Johnson. I never had any, I never had a class with him. He has some kind of behavior racketeering roles with trying to make a fake exception, and with his face, with an angry face he made, involved with a Timothy O'Brien, Andrew O'Brien, and Dennis O'Brien. I forgot his mother's name, but there's something to do with the families involved with the houses. I mean, with the buildings next to the state capitol. And these are also buildings next to the Fox Connecticut News. And their stories with the Russian lady through time, different ownerships. They have roles with names on off Two-Route Highway, increasingly involved on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and intercampuses, with people from other campuses involved with identity theft frauds, with the ones putting predicate acts with fax rolls in fake things in databases, spoken into the minds and natures of the people at those campuses. Ray Colo and Paul Zano have roles with also with a Luigi Guerrero, and with recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with this Judge John Maiano, attaching me to fake locations. They tried to make a fake exception one time in Bryant University, and Bryant University and Johnson and Wales. So it has people involved with the hotel industry, things like that. These are also people involved with the intelligence community, with the Native Americans, and people associated with Trinity College, with FBI, and Weathersfield Police and mayors, involved with child offenders, and people involved with sexual circles, with UPS, that has roles with police forms and courts that have been planting evidences with judges and prosecutors, with interstates, also people that work with the computers of like Target and things like that, who have roles with, putting behavior racketeering, roles with people with phrases like criminal justice, with other countries in the news, where they have roles with predicate acts with facts, and putting fake evidences against people every day. The only counters, they have collusions with that too. It takes a long time to appeal things, and they have torture methods where they prevent people. They have to do damage control for health reasons at prisons or at places where where you're going to be timed going to be, or for they're playing this game through neighbors. Through everywhere, they're the same ones did it intercities. They have collusions with them. So these people with the name O'Brien also have roles with Sandy Hook campuses confessions. Some guy walked out of that prison too. I was arrested when I caught them with a child offender leader of the kids, a Principal B. I caught them with more then and now. And Bob Chase is also involved with drugs and medicines crimes and tactical delusions and criminally foreign influence evidences crimes, federal evidences crimes, identity thefts and frauds with sick people with the name involved with Phil Cololo. Phil Cololo is also involved with a bike recently, involved with other people with other natures of guns and bug spray, poison, and other natures of threats. And federal evidences crimes, wire crimes with the Weathersfield Police, switching and forging names, whole bunch of different falsified police reports, So this is actually worse than extortion. But these are also timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Also, a Ray Cololo, if him or not, there's still collusions with them on Facebook and with KKK themed people. Weathersfield police have a Joshua Schumack recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a whole bunch of people that work at Hartford Hospital, involved with KKK, military, and black ones, switching and forging names, tactically delusions raw, putting people in fake conversations with themselves, totally fake transcripts with this Leahy family. Whole bunch of people tied to the family members of deans and of principals, and they're playing games with everyone forced to speak with others and fake things in background. So get them on paper too. There's a superintendent, Emmett, who is further involved with the confessions of the principal child offender and the ones involved with the police chief Cintron, his daughter. And there's a what's his name? There's a Mazzucato, a Reno Mazzucato. I don't know his brother's name. I don't know if they have kids or whether they're involved. They're involved with a whole bunch of, since they were kids, they had something to do with people all along Route 175. They take a picture and pretend they know you. They get next to you. And they have a Joshua Julian. I don't know him at all. He's the ones with the little rat bags on off the corner of Elm Street and since they were kids, they didn't have a Mazzucato bakery there. It has something to do with this police chief Cintron and 1 years ago too, and military people involved with this, with Hartford Hospital and with Mark Violet and Mike Violet. Also have roles with child offenders, and they're hiding behind the roles with medical doctors like this Leahy family, and judges like this Killian and this Judge Smith, putting sick fake things in databases with child offenders as collusions. A whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University said my fifth grade teacher also has collusions with this. Mr. Abruzzi, he has roles with people who have roles with break-ins, home break-ins in my area, and they have roles with intercultural and intracultural identity theft, fraud, slanders, the same ones with the name, people with the name Cololo and DeMoro involved with the home break-ins on my street, with the not and the narratives on it, and the people involved with this Judge Smith and the Judge Kelly in the Hartford Hospital with the child offenders and this Bob Chase with the whiting forensics since I was a kid. It's near me, like the corner of Griswold Street and Fairlane, involved with a Joshua Stryker, with identity thefts and fraud, slanders, people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, tied to that corner, and also with the witness protection program. People involved with the witness protection program, all sides, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, having been influenced to uses of that corner too, in ways they don't realize themselves too, them because there are foreign bodies involved. They have people with the name Peruta, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're going to pretend other too, but it's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and then pretending other, so it's even better. They have roles of criminally foreign influence, readings of statutes, and of reality with other nations, people who are Russians, people who are Italian, people with international commerce. There are people with the name Scalora on off the World Trade Center who has roles with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime, where they get away with it because they pretend it's just that kind that they have, but it's really their roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases, sometimes worse, and sometimes it's the interbranch that have collusions with them. And the news at the same time, putting sequence ships, putting faked evidences even preemptively at locations, blaming on, keeping it blamed on other things other than themselves. Hilton Catterley had roles with people who had conversations with my fourth grade class teacher. There's a Julie Morin and a Sal Civiello, and people that live around him involved with confessions also confirmed on Facebook about their roles on Tua Highway with people on off the state judicial branch offices and homes and locations next to it. Weathersfield Pizza also has further wire crimes with Weathersfield police. Let's get them on paper, because I didn't even say anything. I said, hello, is Maria there? And Stephen Stockwell hung up the phone on me, pretending passions and emotions, because he's involved with identity thefts and frauds, slanders, fake ties to me and his wife, and all kind of other boyfriends he had, whatever, reportedly and demonstrably, and the judges and courts and prosecutors and their neighbors involved, and with the body stumping spot of Billy Grasso, and with these people next to the state judicial branch offices increasingly involved, making up things about themselves and me. And they have wire crimes with the Weathersfield police, but they've been switching names. And delaying the intercities from getting a response has something to do with their roles with Central Connecticut State University and with people involved through time on my street, involved with predicate acts at campuses with them, putting fake things for identity theft fraud. I never saw Stephen Stockwell on my street in my life. There was just one of the people involved with the names that the Bob Chase and the Whiting Forensics brought up. So Whiting Forensics further recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have further names on off the schools in Weathersfield involved with predicate acts with them through time. Federal evidence is crimes with various natures of organized bodies and a principal child offender, and more involved with that sexual, medical, and as ones involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with kids that attach other kids that were not even in their class. Never even see them around, to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. Uses of confessions by the breaching method is distinctly from the church, is distinctly from the governments, is distinct. So we could follow mandated law, and I'll give you guys gifts. Each country too, through pantheism. I'll give us scripts. All other plans. They'll give you those same economic things, suits and tie. In other words, the suburbs were designed before our founders were born, and they could have designed them better then, before we even had the machines and cars and things. So this breaching method knew how to cause negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, keep it a theater, a landscape theater, and juxtapose, exception nature as criminal insidiousness natures of positives and collusions with itself. So victim, hyper victim, but leaving that the value too, simultaneously. Criminally foreign influence, pretending other. Follow me to the left branch of government. Thank you. I'll fix you. I'll show you how to do it. Is before the Ukraine war, I put hyper-evidential proof, because there's all those trail of people every year since the World Trade Center attack, leading up to it consciously, people that are intelligence with Central Connecticut State University and next to Trinity College. They're involved with all sides in cases and as collusions at the crime scenes. It's relative to also how they got away with having other than black communicated for black and for white. Black pupils, here. We'll take them here. Vaccines.